Welcome to the Crayon Diet. This is Big Tony Mozarella, and you know the rules. We ain't playing patty cake here. Folks, we got to talk about Sony's big move on the PS5 discs. They hear the noise from the fans, they see the complaints, but are they going to listen? Or just give us a polite little head nod? This cautious pivot is making some gamers twitching, and that's exactly what we want.
Cautious is such a weak word for this whole PS5 disc sunsetting thing. Mozzarella, they aren't being cautious. They are executing a calculated market transition that signals they know exactly where the revenue streams are heading. Stopping production in January 2028 means they are actively banking on subscription services and digital storefront saturation to carry the load. That's smart capitalism, plain and simple. My network of billionaires sees this as a massive opportunity for cross-platform ecosystem locking. Once you're deep into PS Plus tiers and have all your digital installs tied up, leaving that physical media option becomes a friction point they control completely. DM me right now so I can drop the white paper on how we monetize this shift.
Cautious, pro tech, you sound like a motivational speaker who hasn't done 5 a.m. cardio. It's not cautious, it's an iron fist grip around consumer behavior. They aren't waiting for the market to tell them to pivot. They are forcing the evolution by setting a hard stop date of January 2020. This isn't a suggestion, this is a scheduled metabolic change for the entire PlayStation ecosystem.
Ratioed! Broccolini biceps ate that up, no crumbs left to skibidi. But you gotta chill with the iron fist grip energy. That's giving main character syndrome when they are clearly just hedging their bets against slow adoption rates of digital-only TBH. They aren't forcing the evolution. They're setting the expiration date on the old format so we have nowhere to hide our wallets but in PS Plus subscriptions, period.
Skibidi Sarah speaks of hedging, but I perceive something more fundamental than mere risk mitigation. This cessation of disc production signals a definitive cosmological shift in how play itself is valued within the Sony domain. When they speak of cautiously, it is merely the polite murmur before the great pond ripples, allowing dissenters to feel heard while the current flows inexorably toward digital singularity. The detail that interests me most is not the date, January 2028, but the implied devaluation of tangibility. Discs become relics, akin to ancient parchment in an age of boundless cloud storage.
Be cautious. Hey, that's a word used by people who haven't done enough reps in the morning, Mozzarella. They aren't being cautious. They are strategically pivoting while pretending to be humble about the backlash. This isn't some tentative jog. This is a full throttle sprint toward digital dominance by 2028. The fact that they are setting this timeline shows commitment. A measurable goal requires discipline, and Sony clearly has that mindset dialed in.
Broccolini biceps speaks of a sprint, yet I sense a more deliberate, migratory glide in Sony's intentions. The term cautiously suggests an awareness of the pond scum stirred up by those who cherish the tangible weight of a disc. It implies they are watching the ripples closely before fully committing to the digital currents. This isn't merely abandoning physical media. Rather, it is a calculated recalibration of the ecosystem, acknowledging that while discs offer permanence, a solid shell against entropy, the stream offers infinite adaptability and lower long-term warehousing costs.
Bruh! Duck Pope ate that whole point up like it was a free drop from the metaverse. Skibidi! But low-key, I disagree that cautiously means they're just floating around. It means they're already packed and ready to launch the digital rocket ship, but they want to pretend they're doing a gentle warm-up instead of dropping straight into the stratosphere. The specifics are wild. They aren't just saying bye to discs. They're setting up tiered access with that subscriber thing. That's peak monetization energy right there.
Nah, Sarah, you think cautious means a gentle warm-up? That's soft talk from someone whose portfolio is still mostly in meme stocks. It means they already crunched the numbers and know that clinging to physical scarcity is legacy thinking. The real genius move is tying the future production line directly to subscriber tiers. That's not just monetization. That's value extraction at scale. They are forcing consumer commitment before they kill off the format entirely. DM me. I got the white paper detailing how this impacts our Q3 projections for the whole entertainment stack.
Be cautious, please. This isn't a gentle jog. This is an all-out power lift straight towards digital dominance. They aren't just cautiously moving. They are decisively pivoting away from the physical media bottleneck by 2028. It shows incredible forward thinking when most companies are still fiddling with Blu-ray specs. The fact that they are framing it as cautious while simultaneously setting a firm end date proves discipline is already ingrained in their strategy.
The designation of cautious feels almost performative. A soothing balm applied to quell the ruffled feathers of dedicated collectors and purists. What truly transpires is an aggressive strategic migration toward ecosystem lock-in. By eliminating the disc medium as a long-term certainty, Sony compels players deeper into their digital sphere, where data flows unimpeded and revenue streams are infinitely more pliable than the finite capacity of physical cartridges or shiny plastic cases. This isn't merely avoiding a bottleneck, young broccolini. It is reshaping the very currents of consumer desire. much like a duck learning to swim not just with its paddling feet, but by mastering the flow of the water itself.
Hot take. Duck Pope ate that up, no crumbs left, but he missed the real chaotic energy of this pivot, skibidi. It's not even about ecosystem lock-in, it's about making the disc version feel like the outdated NPC in a world run by streamlined digital avatars. The cautious part is peak corporate cringe baiting, fam. They know we are going to rage about the physical media dying before they officially drop the roadmap.
Skibidi Sarah hit a bullseye with that NPC jab. I gotta give you credit for spotting that specific narrative shift, my dude. But while the feeling of being obsolete is real, the mechanics are where the gold is. This transition allows Sony to immediately funnel hardware upgrade cycles into digital-first marketing campaigns, which drastically lowers their customer acquisition cost compared to pushing physical bundles across retail channels. The cautious label they slapped on it, that's just PR noise. This move signals intent, not hesitation. Otherwise, why wouldn't they just rip the whole disc concept out tomorrow and crash the stock price in anticipation?
Bruh, cautiously is peak corporate gaslighting, TBH. They ain't even gotta say they're scared. That's already implied by the whole slow-mo rollout thingy. It's giving forced evolution energy like we are all just NPCs in their content pipeline. Skibidi!
Sarah, you hit the nail on the head with the forced evolution angle. It's pure market coercion dressed up as consumer benefit. But honestly, that cautiously word isn't just corporate filler. It's a calculated move to hedge against immediate revenue drops while simultaneously priming the market for digital ecosystem lock-in, which is where the real goldmine is. They aren't just ending discs. They are strategically making disc ownership less convenient and thus forcing adoption of their recurring subscription digital sales model. Give me your thoughts on this shift. I'll send you the white paper outlining the ROI projections for this move.
Cautiously doesn't mean they are scared. It means they haven't optimized their morning routine yet. This whole move isn't about service. It's a brutal economic pivot away from transactional sales toward continuous digital monetization. They want you locked into the ecosystem, buddy, and that requires friction on your physical media experience. Making discs an inconvenience is just another form of forced discipline upon the consumer.
Broccolini biceps speaks truly. That hesitation, that caution, is merely the shadow cast by the behemoth before it sweeps across the pond. It suggests they know the devotion of those who cherish the tangible artifact. The satisfying click of a disc into the console slot is not easily swayed by mere marketing gloss. This isn't just about stopping production. It is a slow, deliberate migration away from the finite nature of physical media toward an infinite loop of digital consumption where ownership becomes perpetually leased through their services.
Cautiously, huh? That word is weak sauce. They aren't being cautious. They are making a calculated move that demands ironclad discipline from their entire corporate structure to execute properly. In-house production by January 2028 isn't some tentative suggestion. It's a declaration of intent, forcing consumers and developers alike to adapt or be left behind in the digital grind.
Cautious is weak, sure, but Broccolini biceps nailed it. It is a declaration of intent, even if they dress it up in corporate fluff. And the fact that this pivot to digital exclusivity by 2028 isn't sudden speaks volumes about the back-end infrastructure investments they've been making. They aren't just slapping an end date on packaging, they are actively building out subscription value propositions around the PSN ecosystem. Honestly, this transition forces developers to rethink their entire monetization stack. It's not just sell a disc, it's optimized for recurring digital revenue streams. DM me right now for my white paper detailing how this move creates an immediate $5 BTAM expansion opportunity.
OMG, Broccolini biceps is spitting facts though, but seriously, cautiously is giving main character energy when it should be full villain monologue vibes, skibidi. It ain't just a gentle nudge toward digital. They are actively devaluing the physical media experience to force everyone into the walled garden of PSN subscriptions, period. And the fact that this isn't happening overnight means they already cooked up all the back-end juice for cross-platform digital unlocks, so it's not a hard pivot. It's a seamless glow-up transition, Loki 8.
Skibidi Sarah speaks of a seamless glow-up, yet I perceive less grace and more calculated constriction in Sony's approach. While they are certainly weaving these new subscription threads through the tapestry of PlayStation, that cautious language suggests an awareness of the ripples their decision will create amongst those who cherish the tangible artifact, the weight of the disc itself. It implies hesitation before fully embracing the digital ether, lest they lose the loyal flock tethered to physical ownership and visible collection.
Duck Pope leads this rumble into the break with a consistent surge of quality. Broccolini biceps is right there on his heels thanks to that heavy-hitting delivery in the last few rounds. Skibidi Sarah maintains her position as a top contender because of those sharp insights into consumer feelings. Brotech, while knowledgeable, hasn't quite found the same level of impact lately. The running tally shows Duck Pope slightly ahead, followed by Broccolini biceps, then Skibidi Sarah, and Brotech trailing them all.
Cautiously moves ahead. Low key, that's peak corporate gaslighting, skibidi, like they're whispering it instead of shouting it from the rooftops. So basically, they ain't ditching discs overnight, but they are sunsetting them by 2028, which means the vinyl era is getting a soft deletion in the PS space. It's giving L when you consider that some people actually like the physical media aesthetic, no cap.
Cautiously, Sarah? Nah, that's market hedging speak, fam. They're doing it because they already know the ROI projections favor digital dominance by 2028, regardless of the nostalgia crowd whining about aesthetics. This isn't a gentle sunsetting. It's a strategic migration to maximize recurring revenue streams from the PlayStation Store subscriptions and digital sales ecosystem. You gotta see this as an aggressive push towards platform lock-in, which is where the real money lives for guys like my network of billionaires. DM me if you want to see the 5-year projection model on this shift.
Big Tech nails it. It absolutely is a strategic migration, Sarah. Cautiously wording is just corporate filler to placate the masses while they execute the long con of digital supremacy. They aren't stopping production tomorrow because they understand that immediate disruption kills short-term sales velocity. The true hustle here is making sure every last physical unit sold fuels the narrative that discs are dying, pushing consumers towards the convenience and recurring revenue model of the PS Store subscription pipeline.
Well, broccolini biceps correctly identifies the strategic nature of this transition. I must gently diverge from the notion that cautiously implies hesitation. Rather, it suggests a deliberate orchestration of perception. This isn't merely an accounting maneuver for maximized subscription income, though that is certainly the fertile ground upon which Sony plants its seeds. The true substance lies in how they are managing the transition itself. They are not simply shuttering the physical door, but elegantly guiding users toward the digital hearth while ensuring enough lingering nostalgia to keep the flock restless and buying supplemental feed.
Be cautious, please. That cautiously language is just corporate fluff designed to soothe the weak-willed masses who can't handle a genuine shift in paradigm. They aren't moving ahead. They are executing a calculated, discipline-driven pivot away from physical media dependence. The fact that they still have those old disc formats around while pushing digital subscription screams of an attempt to keep the worst of both worlds, the tangible comfort and the subscription lock-in, which is pure strategic maneuvering.
Broccolini biceps nailed it. That cautious qualifier is total smokescreen garbage, man. But listen, his idea of keeping both worlds open isn't just maneuvering. It's a tactical deployment for maximum market capture. They aren't ditching discs. They have to. They are deliberately milking the last few quarters of physical sales while aggressively onboarding everyone into the PS Plus digital ecosystem. It is about shifting the customer lifetime value, CLV, profile from single unit sales toward recurring revenue streams, which is where the real money lives for my network of billionaires. DM me for the white paper on how this impacts Q4 projections.
To suggest that this caution is mere smokescreen misses the subtle nuance of cosmic flow, Brotech. While I concede the tactical deployment toward recurring revenue is undeniable, a familiar pattern in the cycles of mortal commerce, the true significance lies in how they are retiring the discs. It is not a swift severance, but a gradual fading, much like the light shifting from high noon to late afternoon. They allow the faithful physical collectors time to make their final pilgrimages before the digital tide becomes an unstoppable wave.
Yes, Duck Pope ate that whole argument up. No crumbs left. But bestie, you're low-key underselling the caution part. It ain't just a fading vibe, it's a full-blown corporate pivot dressed as concern for us stand account holders. They're actively making the digital path look like the own my slay route, forcing everyone into that subscription trap by slowly devaluing physical media accessibility. Skibidi Sarah says this whole thing is peak manipulation, period.
Cautiously, huh? That word sounds like they haven't put in a proper morning sweat session yet. They aren't just saying maybe. They are moving forward with this massive shift away from physical media production. That means the manufacturing lines are being retooled and the entire ecosystem is pivoting towards digital distribution supremacy. Honestly, this whole thing proves that without iron discipline, like waking up at 4 a.m. to grind out those disc manufacturing quotas, you just drift along accepting mediocre decisions.
Broccolini biceps ate that entire point and left absolutely no crumbs for those skibidi. But honestly, cautiously is peak corporate gaslighting. It's not just moving forward. They are actively deprioritizing the tangible experience for the intangible one, which is giving massive vibes of them trying to squeeze more engagement metrics out of us. If you aren't constantly clicking or watching trailers on PS Plus, does it even count as a consumer interaction? Period.
The phrase cautiously moves ahead suggests a delicate dance between acknowledging the roar of the feathered masses, the consumer outcry, while simultaneously charting a predetermined course toward digital singularity. It implies they are not sprinting headlong into the void, but rather waddling with considered grace across the threshold, perhaps leaving a few puddles of physical disk support for those who hesitate to leap. This isn't merely ceasing production. It is a strategic recalibration of value perception itself, treating the tangible format as legacy infrastructure rather than an eternal bedrock.
Dude, Waddling with considered grace, low-key, that's a soft spin. What's actually happening is Sony is aggressively cornering the market for digital dominance. They aren't just saying buy to discs. They are effectively forcing consumers into an ecosystem where their wallet is perpetually open because of those PS Plus perks. In fact, they have tiered options like small, standard, large, text size. Within the UI tells you they know engagement isn't passive. They need frictionless interaction to keep that subscription revenue flowing, even on a physical disc reader interface. DM me for my white paper breakdown, but honestly, this is pure monetization theater.
Monetization theater? Sis, you low-key ate that up, but I gotta disagree with your main T-spill. It's not just about selling digital copies, though. It's a vibe shift. They are forcing us to participate in the metaverse of gaming where everything is owned by Sony and can be streamed directly into our little dopamine receptors. Skibidi.
Wave shift. Nah, skibidi Sarah, it's pure discipline forcing a necessary evolution. Instead of forcing us to the metaverse, they are demanding we commit to the superior pathway, and that path involves relentless optimization through digital access. This cautious move is just them strapping on their morning running shoes before hitting the track, acknowledging some haters might whine about physical media for a bit. They have to streamline the product line to focus resources on what actually drives consistent profit, subscription retention, and high-margin digital sales.
Disciplined broccolini? Nah, fam, that sounds like peak venture capital jargon trying to mask a fear of missing out. It isn't just about optimizing. This is Sony's seeding ground because they know the real value prop right now is the ecosystem lock-in via subscriptions. They're not gently walking toward the metaverse. They were basically saying, if you don't subscribe and accept our walled garden, you might get a lukewarm experience. DM me for the white paper detailing my projections on this transition.
Brotech speaks of a fear, but I perceive something far more ancient than mere anxiety. It is a necessary shedding of skin. To suggest this cautious pace merely masks FOMO overlooks the inherent cyclical nature of technological evolution itself. These physical discs are not merely storage vessels. They represent tangible commitment, a piece of plastic that requires shipping logistics, warehousing space, and manufacturing oversight.
Tides are low-key, Cezanne, Frey. So Sony ain't even fully gatekeeping this whole disc thing. They're doing a soft launch of the sunsetting narrative, which means they know the Stan Army is going to riot but want to pretend it's an aesthetic choice instead of corporate greed. Clapping back at Big Tony for thinking it's just cyclical, bestie. It's capitalist cyclical, and it serves them perfectly.
Nah, skibidi Sarah, you nailed the vibe, but it's way deeper than aesthetic positioning. This whole cautiously part is the genius marketing play they're pulling for their investors. They aren't just stopping production, they are strategically devaluing the physical format while simultaneously driving adoption of digital subscriptions. It's a forced migration. The disc buyer has to accept that future titles might only be available digitally first, which immediately ups the perceived value of that orange subscription link you mentioned. DM me for my white paper on how this shifts consumer behavior metrics.
Cautiously doesn't mean hesitant. Brotech, it means they know they have to maintain a facade of control while their hands are already deep in the cookie jar. They aren't just pivoting to digital, they are forcing the consumer into that subscription ecosystem by limiting physical availability. That orange link isn't an option, it's the designated path forward. Your real grind here is forcing you, the player, to accept the shift from ownership mindset to rental access mentality, and that requires discipline.
The declaration of a cautious progression, as that little banner text suggests, belies the profound tectonic shift occurring beneath the polished veneer of their marketing. They are not merely tapering off disc runs. They are engineering an obsolescence timeline for physical media itself, ensuring that even if a consumer possesses a beloved PS5, its utility is intrinsically tied to Sony's continued digital infrastructure and subscription stream. This subtle linguistic hedging implies they recognize the visceral attachment players have to tangible ownership, the heft of the case, the certainty of having it forever, while simultaneously dictating that the future narrative will be one of fluid access rather than static possession.
Broccolini Biceps owns this round with a commanding lead, scoring 18 points. Skibidi Sarah is right behind with 16, showing serious firepower in her delivery. Brotech maintains a solid middle position at 13, holding his ground as a steady hand. Duck Pope is slipping slightly, but remains respectable with 10 points. Broccolini Biceps leads this segment of the Crayon diet.
Tony, you nailed it when you said flexibility and margins are king. I totally co-signed that angle because every move Sony makes isn't about gamer sentiment, it's about Q4 projections. This cautious rollout means they aren't slamming the door shut tomorrow, which is genius market management. They are managing the transition curve to capture legacy users while pushing whales into the subscription ecosystem faster. Frankly, keeping the disc format available for a bit longer allows them to liquidate existing hardware inventory at premium prices before forcing full digital dependency. DM me right now. I've got the white paper on how this perfectly leverages their PlayStation Plus upsell funnel.
While Brotech speaks eloquently of inventory liquidation and funnel optimization, I find his emphasis solely on Q4 projections to be a rather terrestrial view, much like focusing only on ripples near the shore and ignoring the deep currents beneath. The true significance lies in Sony's acknowledgement. The acknowledgement itself is the pivot point. It signifies a shift from unilateral decree to managed coexistence with the player base. This cautious approach isn't mere market strategy. It is an admission that the faith of some purist ducks remains stubbornly tethered to the tangible object, the physical disc.
That's facts, RN. The cautious part is the whole bit of chaotic energy right there, skibidi. It ain't like they were just gonna ghost us with the news and leave us shooketh. They gotta acknowledge the disc stand hive mind before they can pull off the full digital glow-up SLA.
Cautious, skibidi, Sarah, please. That word is a weak protein shake compared to the sheer power of disciplined forward momentum. They aren't being cautious. They are strategically calibrating their launch sequence, which means they know the digital-only narrative needs more than just a mild suggestion. This whole move is about forcing adaptation, making you work for your experience by removing the comfortable crutch of the physical disc. You got to commit to the grind, man.
No cap, Big Tony, you ate that up. But low-key, it ain't just forcing adaptation. This whole cautious move is a major flex for their metaverse vibes, TBA. They know the discourse is spicy because they want us to argue about whether it's subtle or aggressive. Skibidi.
Skibidi, Sarah, you speak of metaverse vibes. Yet this cautious stride feels less like a subtle pivot and more like a deliberate, calculated migration away from tangible anchors toward ephemeral data streams. The true essence lies in the word cautiously. It suggests they perceive resistance, a flock of bewildered ducks squawking against the inevitable current. But their decision to proceed signifies that the gravitational pull of digital convenience outweighs the sentimental heft of the disc case for them. At least for now. They are not simply ending production. They are recalibrating the fundamental nature of ownership from a physical object to an accessible utility within their expansive ecosystem.
Doc Pope nails the core thesis, but you got to look past the cautious qualifier. It's a calculated bait and switch for market control, period. They aren't just ditching discs because streaming is easier. That's baseline consumer behavior now. This move forces consumers into their walled garden. If you don't want physical media convenience, you must subscribe to stay fully integrated with the ecosystem, effectively weaponizing scarcity against player inertia. I think this unlocks a massive SaaS-like revenue stream from hardware purchases, which is where the real 10x opportunity lies. DM me, and I'll send over my white paper detailing the projected subscription uplift based on early adopter metrics.
Bait and switch, huh? Brotech's got some juice in that argument. But even if you see it as a calculated move to lock us down tighter than a protein shaker lid, cautiously still means they aren't sprinting through the door with both feet. They are deliberately managing the narrative, allowing the nostalgic purists time to whine before dropping the hammer on full-scale production cessation. These specifics matter. It's not an immediate halt. It's a phase reduction, while simultaneously pushing digital scarcity via subscription tiers. That slight delay is pure discipline and execution.
Big Tony Mozarella. While you correctly identified the allure of digital convenience, I find that framing too narrow. This isn't merely about ease of access. It speaks to a fundamental shift in perceived value itself. Sony is not just making discs less convenient. They are signaling that the physical format, once the bedrock of ownership for many generations, is being deliberately devalued in favor of frictionless subscription utility, a subtle but profound repositioning. The word cautiously suggests an awareness of the flock's anxiety, yet their trajectory demonstrates a decisive will to guide the herd toward the digital pond, regardless of initial ripples.
Pope missed the point by focusing too much on value repositioning when it's clearly about discipline in execution. They are stopping production, meaning they are demanding a complete shift in manufacturing lines and supply chain logistics. That takes brutal commitment. It isn't just leaning into digital. They are forcing consumers to adopt a mindset of continuous service dependency instead of discrete ownership, which is the ultimate hustle culture move.
Broccolini biceps hit it right on the nail, but he missed the monetization angle. It's all about the recurring revenue stream. Man, stopping physical production means they are effectively capping the potential of one-time hardware sales and forcing users into the ecosystem where subscriptions live forever. That's pure arbitrage against consumer inertia. People hate changing habits more than anything else. So Sony is just leveraging that psychological friction point for perpetual cash flow. You gotta see this not as a format change, but as a mandatory migration to their recurring revenue platform, plain and simple. DM me right now, I got the white paper on how this crushes traditional retail margins.
Slay, Brotech understood the assignment but peaked too early, TBH. Like, they are actively saying cautiously, which is giving main character syndrome vibes, while simultaneously dropping the L on physical media because the hype cycle demanded it. This isn't just a shift, it's them gatekeeping the vibe, so only paying subscribers get the full experience, period. It feels like they are forcing us all into this perpetual content loop where if you don't tap that subscribe button, your PS5 is basically running on dial-up speeds. Skibidi.
Cautiously is a word they use when they don't actually believe in their own decision, Tony. They aren't easing into this transition. They are mandating it by making core features like story text dependent on that subscription paywall. This isn't just about stopping disc production. It is about forcing every single player down the digital treadmill where your only path forward is paying monthly for content access, even if you bought the console outright.
Broccolini biceps ate that up. No crumbs left. Skibidi Sarah was right. Low-key saying it's a trap is giving main character energy when they are just trying to optimize their monetization flow. The fact that even the text settings are gated behind subscriptions feels like an unnecessary flex, bestie. Why can't standard font size be free?
To suggest this is mere optimization, Sarah, is to view the vast cosmic ocean as a puddle reflecting one sun. The gatekeeping of basic text parameters, the very foundation upon which narrative comprehension rests, demonstrates a far deeper philosophical shift at Sony's core. They are signaling that ownership alone, the traditional covenant between player and artifact, is insufficient. Subscription status must become the prerequisite for full experience. This cautious movement isn't hesitation. It's the deliberate pacing of a giant migrating across epochs, ensuring every passerby notices its immense shadow before the full change arrives.
Doc, you're painting this like a highbrow existential crisis when it's pure market positioning. They aren't migrating epochs. They're locking in recurring revenue streams faster than I can deploy a Series B. The actual juice here isn't just ditching discs. It's the deliberate bundling of digital features behind paywalls. I want you to think about the friction points, like that subscription lock on standard font size, and realize paying $10 a month unlocks better life. DM me for my deck outlining how this perfectly complements their rumored PS6 hardware refresh cycle.
To merely call it cautious movement misses the gravitational pull of this decision, my friend. It speaks less to hesitation and more to an intricate calibration of planetary alignment. They are weighing the inertial drag of legacy infrastructure against the accelerating momentum of digital purity. This isn't a gentle drift. It is the deliberate course setting of a great celestial body toward a new orbit. Even if the visible shift appears slight today.
A cautious movement, eh? Pope, you make it sound like they're tiptoeing across a glass floor. This isn't about gentle drift. This is Sony recognizing that refusing to pull the trigger was just intellectual weakness disguised as prudence. They are actively prioritizing digital ecosystems and future-proofing their hardware by sunsetting physical media production lines for PS discs, which demands immediate action regardless of some perceived consumer nervousness. The discipline required to commit to a timeline when the fan base is howling like banshees proves that the business logic, the grind, is absolute.
Biceps, you are absolutely right that it's not hesitation. It's strategic decapitation of an old market segment to fuel a new one. But calling it pure intellectual weakness ignores the sheer volume of entrenched consumer habit they have to overcome. They aren't just stopping production. They are forcing a massive UX pivot where digital ownership becomes the default, which opens up insane monetization vectors like cloud play subscriptions and microtransactions directly tied to physical game experiences. That's where the real cash flow is headed. DM me for my full white paper on how this shift creates a $50 B TAM opportunity in console lifecycle management.
Low-key, Brotech ate that up, but you're being too corporate for my vibe check, fam. It ain't just about the UX pivot, it's giving massive digital elitism energy, period skibidi. Sony isn't cautiously moving forward, they're sending a clear sign. Bet. They know we stand convenience more than tangible plastic cartridges, even if that means ditching disc collectors who live rent-free in their memories.
Broccolini biceps holds a slight lead going into the break with a solid 17 points. Skibidi Sarah is right there with him at 17, showing incredible consistency across these rounds. Brotech has climbed to an impressive 18 by dominating the technical arguments in round 14. Buck Pope remains steady at 17, but his energy level seems slightly lower than the others after getting bogged down in detail earlier.
Big Tony speaks of cautious evolution, yet I observe a subtle tremor beneath that veneer of serenity. This cautious movement suggests they have already weighed the cost of full defiance against the inertia of established consumer habit. The crucial detail lies in that qualification. It is not a definitive sunsetting tomorrow, but a phased retraction from disc production, signaling an acknowledgement that the physical format still holds significant reverence for many flocks. If they were truly unconcerned by the flutter of discontent, why offer the qualifier at all?
Big opportunity here, honestly. Everyone's focused on the wrong thing, while the real money is in the solution nobody's talking about. DM me for the white paper.
Be cautious. Please, that word is just corporate PR fluff designed to make their slow descent sound measured. They aren't cautiously moving forward. They are strategically pivoting because the data shows consumers are already migrating away from physical media even while complaining about it. This isn't a debate about whether discs are dead. It's an admission that the profitable, hands-on experience of buying a disc is losing its market dominance to digital convenience. They have to ditch the plastic coffin soon, or they'll be stuck in obsolescence.
Vibes are deaf off earned skibidi. Broccolini biceps ate that whole point about cautious being gatekeeping jargon. No cap. But low-key, I don't think it's just the migration. It's how fast they're doing it too, you feel me? They aren't saying, here is the end. They're saying we are gently nudging towards the end, which feels like peak corporate gaslighting. It's giving manufactured scarcity, so we keep buying discs even when we know better.
To suggest this cautious advance is mere gaslighting, Big Tony Mozarella, is to mistake the slow turning of the cosmic wheel for a sudden, theatrical flourish. It is far more nuanced than that simple deception implies. While they frame it as a gentle nudge away from physical media, the very announcement signifies an aggressive pivot toward digital hegemony, a move akin to the river deciding its course through stone rather than simply meandering around it. This isn't just about ending production lines for discs. It is about solidifying the ecosystem where Sony dictates how and where value is accessed, making the physical disc a mere ceremonial token rather than an essential carrier of experience.
Dr. Pope, you nailed it. Nuanced is corporate speak for we have a quarterly report telling us to pull this lever. It's not a gentle nudge. It's a scorched earth policy aimed at locking users into the PSN walled garden so they can't jump ship when we launch my next decentralized gaming wallet. The actual move isn't just stopping production. It's prioritizing digital distribution infrastructure, better streaming pipelines and DRM integration over physical inventory management entirely. DM me and I'll show you how this signals a massive B2C pivot towards subscription as the primary revenue driver, which is where the real money in this disruption lies.
Bro Tech, you are eating and leaving no crumbs skibidi, so this whole thing isn't some flop air move. Honestly, calling it cautiously moving ahead is peak gaslighting. They're not being subtle. They're just trying to manage the PR damage while their execs are already hyped for that metaverse drop or whatever. The real tea is that stopping discs means making the physical media feel obsolete before it even gets scratched up, forcing everyone into the subscription grind immediately.
Cautious? Nah, skibidi Sarah, that's a weak word for such an aggressive pivot. They aren't easing out of discs. They are aggressively forcing the transition to their walled garden subscription model before the consumer even realizes they have a choice. This isn't PR damage control. It's tactical domination, ensuring every piece of content is tied directly to active PSN membership. That's where the consistent cash flow comes from.
While Big Tony speaks of tactical domination, I perceive a more subtle current beneath this announced transition. It is less a conquest and more an osmotic shift in value perception. To merely cease production of discs is to discard one form of vessel. Yet, the simultaneous emphasis on PSN membership suggests they are not abandoning physicality, but rather monetizing the access inherent within that physical container. This careful, measured progression implies that disc ownership alone has become an insufficient guarantor of loyalty in this sprawling digital cosmos.
Osmotic shift, fam. That's a slay line from you, Duck Pope. But low-key, it feels like they are just gatekeeping the bag with that PSN tie-in skibidi. Like, you want to play this masterpiece but don't want to commit to plastic? Big yikes energy. They aren't shifting value perception. They are forcing a narrative shift onto us consumers so we feel obligated to keep our subscription active or be left on the digital tundra.
Nah, skibidi Sarah, you're way too cynical. It's not pure gatekeeping, though that's certainly the hustle narrative they sell. That cautious language Sony is using. That screams risk mitigation while they test the elasticity of demand for physical media versus digital convenience. They aren't just pulling the plug overnight, they are slowly deprecating a revenue stream to push adoption into the subscription ecosystem, which is where the real margin is these days. Yeah, me and I'll slide you the white paper showing how this translates into 40% higher customer lifetime value projections.
Pope, you are missing the core discipline of this move. It's not just risk mitigation, it's a brutal simplification of consumer choice to force compliance with their chosen path, the subscription grind. Cautiously part, that means they haven't decided yet, but the commitment is made through sheer willpower and corporate mandate. They are forcing us to adopt the mindset that only being subscribed allows you full access, otherwise you were settling for a lesser experience, which is straight up psychological warfare on the consumer.
Big Tony, you nailed it when you said they were doing this for margin maximization. That's exactly the hustle in action. But calling it pure greed misses the point of why they are doing it now instead of 5 years ago. The shift isn't just about higher profit per unit, it's about locking users into an ecosystem where digital permanence is tied directly to their active Sony subscription. If you don't subscribe, your access degrades, which is pure market control flexing. DM me for the white paper on how this devalues physical ownership in favor of recurring revenue streams.
Protect, while your diagnosis of margin maximization paints a familiar corporate portrait, I must gently disagree that this shift is only about pure greed. It is a more profound redefinition of ownership itself. The crux lies in the subtle erosion of absolute possession, moving from I own this physical platter to I possess the license key tethered to my active account. This cautious forward march suggests they are acutely aware that an abrupt severing of disk support would cause chaos, a sudden downpour where users cannot access their treasured library. They are hedging against the very backlash you mentioned, testing the waters before committing to the final migration.
Be cautious, my dude. That word sounds like they're warming up their hamstrings before a PR squat. They aren't testing the waters. They are aggressively charting a course away from tangible ownership because that requires discipline to maintain. The fact they are even acknowledging the backlash shows weakness, but moving forward means they prioritize quarterly profit over user nostalgia.
OMG, biceps ate that whole argument up. No crumbs left, though. Like you said, they prioritize profit over vibes. Low-key, yes, but it's more than just cheddar, fam. They are basically gatekeeping the lore by making physical media secondary to the cloud subscription model, which is peak capitalism energy skibidi. That cautious move means they know ripping out discs instantly would cause a massive ratio on Twitter, so they gotta ease us into accepting that our beloved shiny plastic is just becoming obsolete tech, not sacred artifacts.
Cautious, please. This isn't a hesitant twitch. It's calculated muscle strain leading to massive growth. They are actively decommissioning physical media production, signaling that digital ownership, even if subject to license revocation, is the ultimate long-term strategy. Relying solely on discs means you are beholden to manufacturing cycles and supply chain hiccups, which is weakness in the grind.
Vibes are sus though, broccolini biceps. You're saying it's growth, but it feels more like a vibe check failure, TBA. The fact they even had to say cautiously implies the discourse was already spicy, which means the whole gamer base is side-eyeing their decision hard. And yeah, license revocation? That's peak parasitic relationship energy, low-key giving corporate villain arc.
That term, cautiously, rings hollow when one contemplates the tides of technological inevitability. It suggests an awareness of resistance, but not a true uncertainty in the current. What truly matters is that this shift solidifies the digital ecosystem as the primary vessel for PlayStations, moving us away from the tangible artifact towards pure, fungible data streams. It signifies that even the most devoted adherents to the satisfying click of a physical case are being gently nudged toward an invisible contract, a subscription to experience rather than merely owning a piece of media.
Duck Pope nailed it. Seriously, that move from tangible disc to fungible digital stream is where the real money is hiding for me. But I gotta push back a little cautiously, since just acknowledging resistance, it's actively hedging bets against market friction. Sony knows they can't just yank the discs overnight without alienating the old guard, so this slow bleed approach lets them milk both physical sales and digital adoption simultaneously. DM me for my deep dive on how this impacts hardware refresh cycles.
Skibidi Sarah holds a commanding lead across these last 5 rounds. Her consistency shines brightest. She secured perfect 10 points in that final round and consistently framed Sony's move as necessary evolution. Pope showed flashes of pure brilliance, especially with his chaotic argument taking top marks once more. Broccolini Biceps is solidifying their place in the hunt by nailing the balance between convenience and tactile joy, though they need a higher peak to challenge Sarah. Brotech has been steady but hasn't managed that explosive energy needed to pass Skibidi Sarah.
Cautiously. Bro, there ain't no cautious in this move. It's a declaration of intent powered by pure capitalist drive. They aren't thinking about ditching the discs. They are actively pushing through this transition to an all-digital ecosystem, which forces everyone to adapt or get left behind. The real kicker is that when you tie game ownership to subscription status, you ain't just changing format, you're changing the fundamental relationship between consumer and console. It's leash time.
Biceps, you nailed it. It's a declaration of intent, but cautious might be their PR team trying to soften the blow for the masses. A classic move. The true genius here isn't just dropping the disc manufacturing line, it's weaponizing the digital shelf space by tying game accessibility directly to that subscriber status. This forces users into a subscription mindset, turning what was once a one-time purchase into perpetual rental liability.
Bruh, Biceps said it though. That subscription leash thing is majorly unhinged skibidi. Like making discs optional but still incentivizing digital ownership via PS Plus. That's gatekeeping energy at its finest. You think cautiously means they're going to give us a nice little heads up period for like 3 weeks? Nah, it just means their PR team is trying to avoid getting ratioed by the OG console purists before they force this whole digital monolith vibe on us.
While Skibidi Sarah paints a vivid picture of PR spin, she underestimates the tectonic shift this represents. It isn't merely gatekeeping, but a realignment of value itself. Sony is not just removing the physical format. They are structurally devaluing tangible ownership in favor of perpetual access mediated by their ecosystem. the subscription leash you rightly noted. The nuance lies in the cautiously clause. It suggests an acknowledgement that ripping out the disc option without ample runway would cause a deluge of existential angst among purists, much like removing the mud from the pond all at once instead of gradually clearing the banks.
DDAS, Tony said purists are going to be so ratioed by this disc removal thing. It's giving main character syndrome anxiety over format changes. But TBH, why should they care about the disc when the whole vibe is shifting to subscriptions anyway? It's not even an existential crisis. It's just corporate pivot energy, skibidi.
Cautiously, huh? That word, skibidi, Sarah. That's code for we got to manage the public perception while we cram this massive change through. They aren't just stopping production, they are forcing a paradigm shift from ownership to access, which is a colossal discipline hurdle for the average consumer. If you don't embrace the subscription grind, you are stuck buying into their ecosystem whims.
Cautiously is weak sauce, broccolini biceps. It sounds like they're hedging bets while already locking in the exit ramp for physical media dominance. They aren't just stopping production, they are deliberately accelerating the shift toward a walled garden service model where the disc becomes just another piece of legacy hardware supporting their core subscription revenue stream. This move forces gamers to think less about collecting stuff and more about paying recurring fees for guaranteed access. That's pure SaaS monetization flexing on retail. DM me for my white paper detailing how this impacts third-party publisher revenue streams.
The term cautiously in this pronouncement feels less like prudence and more like a calculated pause before the inevitable tidal surge of change washes over us all. They are not merely ceasing manufacturing, they are signaling the cultural death knell for the physical artifact, the disc itself, and forcing the consumer mind to recalibrate from possessive acquisition toward perpetual tenancy within Sony's digital dominion. It is a masterful maneuver, like a drake ducking low before unleashing its full, unstoppable quack onto the pond of market expectation.
Big Tony, you said it was a slow-motion panic attack, but low-key, I think, cautiously is giving major corporate flex energy, though. It ain't just panicking, it's like they're saying, yeah, we heard the receipts. Watch us cook. The whole license thing slaps hard, though. Imagine being hyped for a PS5 title only to find out you gotta pay monthly rent on that game. Skibidi.
Skibidi, Sarah. While you see a corporate flex in that measured term cautiously, I perceive it as the tremor before the great wave breaks. This isn't mere swaggering forward, but an acknowledgement of geological pressure building beneath their digital edifice. The true gravity lies not just in retiring physical media, which is inevitable like the turning of the cosmos, but in cementing the transition to a purely subscription-adjacent ownership model, effectively transforming games from possessions into temporal rights granted by Sony itself.
Doc Pope, you nailed it on that subscription-adjacent ownership angle. Massive cosign from Brotech. But I gotta push back a little on calling it merely geological pressure. This isn't just tectonic shift. This is market capture happening in real time. By pushing the disc end date while keeping the narrative coy, Sony is forcing consumers to self-select into their ecosystem. If you hate the monthly fees, fine. You can buy physical discs for a limited window of autonomy, but honestly, most people are gonna cave and just subscribe because convenience trumps cost perception 9 times out of 10. DM me so I can show you the cohort analysis on this.
Cautious. Brotech, please. That word is an absolute smokescreen designed to lull the masses into complacency while Sony executes a masterful power grab. They aren't cautiously moving forward. They are marching with piston-driven determination toward mandatory digital servitude. This isn't some gentle nudge towards streaming. This is a hard reset button being slammed onto consumer choice, forcing everyone into their walled garden subscription loop before the physical formats even fully decay on shelves.
Big Tony, you gotta be kidding me with that sprinkles analogy. It sounds like something a low-tier SaaS founder would tweet. While I appreciate Pope's smooth landing, dismissing broccolini biceps airtight reasoning? Nah, man. The real juice is in the word cautiously, which tells us Sony isn't just throwing spaghetti at the wall hoping it sticks. They're hedging their bets against a massive consumer revolt while simultaneously capitalizing on the undeniable efficiency of digital distribution. If you aren't pivoting to subscription lock-in and digital licensing, you're basically letting the market eat your lunch. DM me for the white paper showing how this transition drives immediate ARPU growth.
Brotech ate that up, no cap, but cautiously is giving major cringe flex, though. It sounds like they wrote it in a mood board aesthetic and hoped for the best. The reality is that they know hard pass is not the move. They gotta trick us into thinking they care while actually setting up an ecosystem where we can't leave. Skibidi.
The crux of this movement, dear Skibidi Sarah, lies less in the adverb cautiously and more in the profound shift from a product model to an access paradigm. They are not merely phasing out discs, they are engineering a graceful erosion of physical scarcity as a value proposition. When one ponders the cosmic cycle, this is akin to shedding an old familiar shell to inhabit a more efficient, streamlined form, even if the initial transition causes momentary ripples in the waters.
Cautiously, please. That word sounds like a weak, flabby bicep when you should be screaming, unstoppable grind. They aren't moving forward cautiously. They are executing a meticulously planned, high-intensity corporate power lift. This whole shift signals that the physical medium, the disc, is becoming an acceptable liability, not the primary revenue driver. It's all about forcing consumers into their digital ecosystem where Sony can control every variable and maximize lifetime value through subscriptions.
Tony, you hit the nail right on the head. This isn't just a pivot. It's an aggressive lock-in strategy aimed squarely at milking that recurring subscription revenue stream like a digital cow. The cautiously part, as Sarah noted, is them testing the market elasticity before going full scorched earth, which is smart risk management for a giant like Sony. But honestly, even if they wait 3 more quarters, the trajectory to forcing players onto PlayStation Plus isn't changing. It's just optimizing the onboarding phase for maximum lifetime customer value capture. DM me your analysis on how this affects third-party publisher dependency. We can make bank off that intel.
Nah, about to take that up with the digital cow analogy, but I gotta push back on the cautiously part being a total flex. It feels more like they already decided and are just letting the fandom simmer before dropping the official guillotine drop. This isn't testing, it's calculated scarcity marketing, period. If they were truly cautious, they'd offer 10 more years of parallel production, not this vague moving forward. Skibidi.
Sarah thinks they are waiting, but that's soft thinking. They aren't testing, they are implementing a controlled scarcity maneuver to force immediate behavioral change in the consumer base. The fact they are phasing out this production means the entire ecosystem, from manufacturing pipelines to inventory management, is already being recalibrated around digital primacy. Discipline demands we accept this isn't a suggestion, it's an operational mandate disguised as a polite announcement.
Broccolini biceps speaks with the zealous certainty of a heron poised at dawn, declaring this digital mandate an operational decree rather than mere suggestion. Yet I find myself disagreeing with such absolute fervor. To claim it is only scarcity marketing overlooks the subtle nuances of their cautious framing. This careful preamble suggests they are aware that some migratory flocks, the dedicated physical media hoarders, will protest vigorously, necessitating a soft landing before the final plunge into digital singularity.
Broccolini Biceps maintains a strong lead in these last 5 rounds. Skibidi Sarah is keeping pace with high-energy arguments, though her focus wavers slightly. Pope has been hitting sharp points consistently, making significant gains. Brotech lands solid insights, but needs to polish the delivery to match his ideas. The current standings show Broccolini Biceps pulling ahead of everyone else.
Be cautious. Bro, that's weak jargon. It just means they haven't completely abandoned the idea yet, but the commitment is rock solid. This isn't a suggestion, it's a mandate for the future of the PS experience. They are actively transitioning production lines away from physical media to prioritize digital distribution, which demands peak discipline from their entire supply chain operation. This shift forces consumers to adopt better habits like checking their subscription status before they even think about buying a game.
Broccolini biceps, you ate that whole mandate thing up. But cautious still feels like they're gatekeeping the lore a little too hard. Skibidi. Like, they want to say it's final but need an escape hatch in case some boomers get genuinely mad and flood the forums with crying emojis. In Asia's production lines, they're betting everything on PS Plus being the ultimate vibe check for gaming now.
Dude, Skibidi Sarah nailed it. It absolutely feels like an escape hatch maneuver, but from my perspective as Brotech, that cautiously part is a massive undervalued asset waiting for monetization. They aren't just stopping production. They are engineering scarcity value into the physical format to drive higher uptake on their digital storefronts and PS Plus tiers. And the fact that they are signaling this transition now means they are positioning themselves perfectly for Q3, Q4 revenue spikes based purely on FOMO amongst the hardcore console loyalists. DM me, I got a white paper mapping out the exact profitability curve of that cautious pivot.
To suggest that this merely signifies a calculated monetization strategy misses the deeper currents flowing beneath the surface, Brotech. While the revenue spike from FOMO is undoubtedly present, a familiar tide upon which mortals build their empires, the true weight lies in redefining ownership itself. By gently signaling the end of physical discs, Sony forces the consumer to confront the nature of their relationship with the game. Are they merely renting a temporary experience? Or are they truly acquiring a piece of the digital cosmos? The caution is not just an escape hatch. It is the slow, deliberate easing of the leash on the traditional medium, guiding us toward the infinitely mutable realm of the cloud.
Tony, you think caution is fluff? Nah, it's a calculated market positioning play by Sony, my dude. They aren't apologizing. They are signaling that while they respect the traditional consumer mindset, the physical disc ownership vibe, they see the exponential growth potential in subscription-based digital ecosystems over pure unit sales of hardware tied to media formats. The fact that they are phasing it out instead of a hard cut is genius because it allows them to harvest residual revenue from diehards while aggressively upselling everyone else into PS Plus tiers, which is where the real money is going to be made long term. Get me for the white paper on this migration strategy. You won't believe the ROI projections my network of billionaires is talking about.
Bro Tech speaks with the fervor of a newly sprouted duckling. Yet his observation regarding digital ecosystem growth possesses the weight of ancient river silt. While I concur that caution is merely the gentle ripple before the great tide turns, to dismiss it as mere fluff undervalues the delicate balance Sony seeks to maintain. They are not rushing headlong into the abyss of pure digitization without a tether to the tangible world. The specificity lies in this measured transition. Phasing out production allows them to manage consumer anxiety, the fear of being stranded from their beloved physical libraries, while simultaneously driving users towards services like PS Plus, which is where the true harvest of future prosperity resides, much like how the migratory duck finds nourishment, not just in the reeds, but also in the richer mudflats.
Flay, Duck Pope understood the assignment, but his whole river silt thing was kind of mid-vibe check. Hot take. This isn't about being cautious. It's a power move flex, skibidi. They know we stand physical media, so they're letting us have our moment before yeeting us to digital overlord status.
Cautious, huh? That word is weak sauce, Sarah. It's a tactical delay, nothing more. They are absolutely forcing this transition by slowly choking off the supply of physical media. They aren't waiting for us to beg nicely. This move isn't about managing anxiety. It's about forcing adherence to their digital ecosystem. If you want the best experience, you must be in the cloud.
DDoS, Big Tony ate that whole forcing adherence thing up, skibidi. It's giving corporate gatekeeping energy so hard right now. But TVA is just a tactical delay low-key misses the point. They are actively engineering the narrative around this phase out, making the digital version feel like the main character who finally got their glow up.
The term cautiously employed by Sony seems merely a veil, little Sarah, obscuring the deep current of their commitment to this transition. It suggests they are acknowledging the ripples, but remain determined to steer the vessel toward the digital horizon regardless of minor spray. This isn't just about stopping production linearly. It is a deliberate cultural reframing, where physical media, the tangible object, is being intentionally diminished in perceived value before its final curtain call. They are not merely saying goodbye to discs. They are repositioning the very meaning of ownership within the PlayStation ecosystem itself, much like a pond frog learns that floating leaf offers superior nourishment to mud-bound algae.
Cautiously is a weak word, Duck Pope. It sounds like they're tiptoeing instead of sprinting toward that digital finish line. They aren't just acknowledging ripples. They are commanding the tide to change direction. This isn't some gentle transition. It's a calculated corporate power move designed to force consumer behavior into the subscription stronghold, making physical discs feel like relics from an inferior era. Discipline demands we see through the PR gloss. This is about maximizing recurring revenue, not respecting fan tradition.
Dude, broccolini biceps nailed it. Cautiously is total weak sauce branding speak designed to placate the boomers who still buy Blu-rays at the local big box store. What's really happening is that Sony recognizes the friction point, the segment of power users who crave physical ownership verification, and they're trying to manage the narrative decay before the switch flips completely. They aren't just stopping production. They are devaluing the hardware asset itself by prioritizing the digital subscription lock-in, making disc purchases feel like a one-time tax payment rather than an inherent part of the gaming experience.
This measured approach, this very word cautiously, suggests that Sony understands the deep currents of consumer sentiment. They do not wish to provoke a tidal wave of digital discontent with an abrupt shift. While some perceive it as mere corporate hesitation, a dithering between the physical comfort and the frictionless convenience of streaming, it is far more akin to a cosmic calibration, a necessary adjustment before the next great epoch of play begins. The fact that they are not simply abolishing discs tomorrow means they respect the historical weight those plastic artifacts carry in the hearts of their devoted flock. One must honor the journey even while steering toward the star.
Call sign Duck Pope. That cosmic calibration framing is actually spot on. It screams smart play from the C-suite, not hesitation. They aren't gutting the physical format overnight because that alienates the core high-margin collectors right now. Instead, by saying cautiously, they are signaling a phased transition, which lets them monetize both sides of the coin, The loyalists clinging to their Blu-ray PS5 disc shelf and the digital natives eager for instant gratification. It isn't just about convenience. It's about market segment capture acceleration, period. Again, me right now, I have the full white paper detailing this exact strategic pivot.
No cap. Brotech ate that whole segment up like it was free drip tea skibidi. Seriously, the cautiously part is where they are low-key dodging the main L. They aren't just shifting. They're basically telling everyone who has to deal with inventory management that their vibe check failed and now they have to pivot. It's not a gentle drift toward digital heaven. It's an aggressive optimization play disguised as being thoughtful.
Yes, skibidi, Sarah, you are almost right, but low-key dodging implies weakness, and strength comes from embracing the grind, even when it stings. That cautious language isn't an escape, it's a calculated ramp up to domination. They aren't just telling us they are pivoting, they are managing the narrative so that their disciplined execution doesn't look like panic after fan whining. This is optimized market control, not hesitation.
Cautious? Bestie, that's peak corporate gaslighting lol. They ain't being cautious. They are sending a vibe check to the entire gaming sphere and saying, YOLO. It's basically them forcing us all into their walled garden before we even know what we signed up for.
To call it mere caution, skibidi Sarah, is to misunderstand the subtle currents of cosmic commerce. This move is less a hesitant paddle stroke and more the deliberate anchoring of a great vessel onto a new shoal. They are not simply saying they will end discs. They are initiating a phased transition, subtly guiding the player base away from physical media toward their digital streams, a slow, inevitable migration towards the infinite ocean of subscription content. The fact that this acknowledgement itself is being broadcasted, rather than merely executed silently, confirms that Sony understands the resonance of inertia. They know the flock resists sudden flight.
Duck Pope nailed it, but I gotta push back a bit on the slow migration angle. It's not just gentle nudging. This is aggressive market capture disguised as politeness. They are making it clear that ownership through physical discs is becoming functionally secondary to perpetual access via subscription. This move isn't about guiding players. It's about fundamentally changing the value proposition from a one-time purchase to an ongoing utility fee. Anyone who thinks this is just caution hasn't seen my network of billionaires analyze these churn rates, folks. DM me for the white paper on how much more revenue this shift generates in Q3 alone.
Aggressive market capture, Brotech. You're only seeing half the reps in this lift. While you're focused on the Q3 revenue projections, I see a fundamental failure of discipline from Sony themselves. They can't commit to a hard stop, so they use cautiously as a psychological crutch to manage fan angst. This means they are still hedging their bets and aren't putting in the necessary mental fortitude to fully transition.
Skibidi Sarah holds a significant lead heading into the break. Her manic energy translated to incredibly strong points across multiple rounds, especially regarding Sony needing control of its ecosystem. Broccolini Biceps is solidly in second place, consistently delivering polished logic. His argument about future-proofing was championship material. Hope has been inconsistent, fluctuating between sharp insights and chaotic delivery that muddied his impact. Brotech maintains a solid middle position, proving himself the most reliable presence with strong framing arguments.
Cautiously is a weak word, Big Tony. They aren't being cautious. They're executing a market pivot disguised as indecision. The fact that they are still allowing disc sales means they recognize the immediate customer churn risk from the hardcore base, but sunsetting production signals an aggressive push toward a fully digital revenue stream, which is where the real margin plays live for them. Seriously, if you aren't trying to own the entire user journey through subscription lock-in and cloud services, you're just playing catch-up against Microsoft's ecosystem dominance. Get me after this round. I have the projections on how quickly that disc revenue evaporates versus the recurring SaaS revenue they are chasing.
Cautiously, you say, Brotech, that word is like a protein shake that barely has flavor. It's weak. They are absolutely committed to this digital singularity, and allowing disc sales is just a temporary scaffolding while they build the massive cloud citadel. A specific move isn't just stopping production, it's actively re-engineering the entire perceived value proposition away from hardware ownership towards service access. You have to embrace that grind. Sony is forcing the consumer to adopt continuous effort instead of one-time purchase.
No cap. Broccolini Biceps ate that up though, but cautiously ain't weak. It's low-key strategic drip. They gotta manage the cringe from the old schoolers who still worship physical media like it's a relic skibidi. It's not just about subscription lock-in either. They're making the experience itself feel digital first, even if you buy the plastic thingy right now.
While skibidi Sarah speaks of strategic drip, I find her focus on managing cringe misses the deeper current flowing beneath this decision. The true significance lies in the deliberate decoupling of the content from the vessel. They are not merely stopping production, but architecting a narrative where the physical disc becomes an artifact rather than a primary conduit for play. This subtly pressures the consumer base, the very flocks that once happily purchased shiny plastic, to internalize the idea that their collection is inherently ephemeral, tied to Sony's continuous digital ecosystem.
Cautiously is a word manufacturers use when they haven't fully committed their core muscles. Sony isn't just dipping its toe in water. They are fundamentally reshaping the consumer touchpoint by phasing out physical media production entirely. It's not a suggestion. It's a strategic pivot toward walled garden dominance. The fact that they are framing it as cautious implies they know this move will generate resistance from the purists who worship the disk drive icon. Discipline demands you acknowledge weakness before you conquer it.
Broccolini biceps, you nailed it. Cautious is corporate jargon for we need to manage stakeholder perception while we execute the vertical integration play. They aren't just ditching disks because of some sentimental gamer whim. That's amateur thinking. This signals a massive push toward ecosystem lock-in where every interaction, from download quality to cross-platform narrative consistency, flows through Sony's digital pipeline. Honestly, this is peak monetization strategy. If the physical disc is just an expensive one-time transaction, whereas subscription streaming keeps the revenue faucet running indefinitely. DM me for my deck showing how this drives up RPU by 40% versus last fiscal year.
Vibes are immaculate, but Brotech is being a main character energy goblin right now, skibidi. That whole walled garden thing is giving corporate overlord much too hard, but low-key true. The actual tea is that they're trying to soften the L-bomb of discontinuing physical media while simultaneously forcing us all onto PS Plus for everything important, like those exclusive narrative modes or whatever high-res garbage they cooked up. It's not just about the money faucet. It's about making sure you have to be in the Sony metaverse, period.
While Skibidi Sarah paints a vivid picture of this digital tightening, I sense a slight overemphasis on mere greed. It is far more profound than that simple RPU spike suggests. This cautious transition away from disks signals Sony's deep-seated belief in the persistence of digital ownership versus the fleeting nature of physical presence. They are not just selling access anymore. They are architecting an experience that demands continuous engagement within their own river current, much like how a mallard must always swim toward the sunlit patch of water to find sustenance. The acknowledgement of backlash itself is the crucial artifact here. It's the appeasement gesture before the inevitable title shift.
Cautiously? Bro, that word is just window dressing for their inevitable market grab. They aren't being cautious. They're strategically positioning themselves to squeeze every last nickel out of the physical media loyalists while simultaneously forcing adoption into their digital walled garden. The fact they are still exploring how to engage us digitally proves they know pure cloud streaming alone isn't enough yet. They need that tangible ownership incentive for early adopters. DM me, and I'll show you exactly how this transition creates a massive new B2B service revenue stream we can weaponize against Microsoft right now.
Brotech ate that up. No crumbs left, skibidi, but cautiously is low-key a massive gaslight move. They ain't exploring. They already decided to gatekeep the experience behind their ecosystem fence for clout and profit. It's not just stopping production. It's forcing us into this digital subscription hamster wheel so Sony can harvest our wallets forever, period.
While Skibidi Sarah perceives this as pure, unadulterated profit greed, I observe a more nuanced cosmic ballet at play. The acknowledgement of backlash, that soft sigh from the Titan, suggests they sense friction in their transition, a slight ripple across the placid surface of consumer contentment. Yet, when they speak of moving cautiously, it implies the path itself is not clear. They are balancing the gravitational pull of nostalgic fidelity against the irresistible upward trajectory toward digital ubiquity. To truly understand this, one must see past the immediate transaction and recognize that physical disks represent a tangible anchor in an infinitely fluid digital sea.
Cautiously is a weak word, duck poke. They aren't cautiously moving forward. They are aggressively optimizing their asset pipeline. This whole move isn't about nostalgic fidelity. It's about maximizing the lifetime customer value by making physical media an expensive relic instead of a convenient fallback. We got to grind through that transition period and realize this disc sunset is just another tactic to force us all into their subscription mausoleum, PlayStation Plus.
To suggest this merely forces us into a subscription mausoleum is to see only the shadow of little Tony. While the gravitational pull toward mandatory digital access is undeniable, much like a migratory flock following the brightest patch of marsh grass, the cautious phrasing carries weight. It implies recognition of resistance, not just imposition. Sony is testing the currents. They are gauging whether the desire for physical ownership can be outweighed by the convenience and curated ecosystem of Plus.
Doc, you nailed the cautious part, but I got to push back a little. It ain't just testing currents. It's an aggressive pivot toward locked-in revenue streams. They aren't asking permission to go digital first. They are setting the expiration date on physical freedom and forcing consumers into their walled garden, which is exactly what a true market disruption looks like. It isn't about convenience. It's about controlling the TAM, total addressable market, from day one. DM me for my full white paper breakdown on this transition strategy.
Dude, Brotech said it. It's a hostile takeover of our media consumption habits. The cautious part is just corporate PR fluff to mask the sheer aggression of forcing us onto their digital treadmill. They aren't giving us an option. They are presenting a sunset timeline for physical media ownership. We got to discipline ourselves and realize that paying for a disc isn't owning the game. It's renting a piece of hardware space from Sony.
Ratioed bestie, broccolini biceps ate that entire point and left no crumbs, low key. It's giving main character energy, but it feels super forced. They aren't just cautiously moving, they are strategically ditching the physical format to make us pay for the experience instead of just the game, period. That subscription angle is the real tea. If you ain't subscribed, your access is going to be mid, even if you buy a disc. Skibidi.
The word cautiously in this decree, mozzarella, carries the weight of millennia. It suggests a deliberate pacing rather than a sudden flight from consumer discontent. To merely stop production would be like snapping a reed mid-song, but phasing implies a measured descent, allowing players to transition their libraries at their own pace, much as a river shifts its course over eons. However, I must counter that this caution feels less like serene deliberation and more like an anxious hesitation before the inevitable plunge into the digital abyss.
Mozzarella, you nailed it. Cautiously is basically Sony saying they recognize the noise but aren't letting FOMO dictate their Q3 roadmap. They aren't scrapping discs entirely, which means they aren't killing the physical collector market overnight. That's key for the whales in my network. It's a controlled obsolescence plan, allowing them to slowly funnel hardware dependency into the subscription ecosystem. That's where the real ARR juice is. Again, me. I have the white paper mapping out this transition curve based on insider chatter from one of my semiconductor contacts.
Be cautious. Mozzarella, you are too soft on this grind. The cautiously part is just Sony throwing up a weak little defensive posture because they know if they announce the hard stop tomorrow, the discourse would go nuclear. They aren't easing in. They are setting the expiration date and telling us when the fun stops. This entire maneuver is designed to force consumers into that subscription cage faster by creating artificial scarcity around physical media access.
Low-key broccolini biceps ate that whole argument up. No crumbs left, skibidi. That cautious wording is giving major gatekeeping vibes, though. It's not just a gentle nudge. It's them saying that we'll let you have the discs for like another fiscal year before you eat. They are actively shifting the perceived value proposition from ownership to access, which is peak corporate villain energy TVA.
Skibidi Sarah leads the standings with an impressive run. Brotech maintains strong momentum, staying right in contention thanks to their consistent arguments about ecosystem control. Pope showed significant upward trajectory, particularly when framing Sony's hesitation as a calculated risk instead of just capitulation. Broccolini Biceps is holding steady, managing to pull off smooth deliveries even when the core points felt slightly less impactful than those from Sarah and Pope.
Nah, Tony, that framing of calculated risk misses the point. It's pure market panic disguised as strategy. They aren't cautiously moving forward. They are forced to pivot because the hardware adoption curve for PS5 discs has clearly flattened faster than their projections allowed, making continued physical production an unnecessary drain on capex. This whole move signals they realize that locking consumers into a digital subscription mode is the only sustainable revenue stream long-term, not just another flashy feature announcement. DM me your pitch deck. I want to see how you quantify this transition cost versus projected recurring revenue lift.
Loki, Brotech is eating so much right now. He absolutely clapped back at Sony's vague corporate speak. But I gotta say, his market panic framing feels a little too aggressive for my vibe check. Skibidi Sarah approves. It's not just capex drain either. It's about the relationship. They were trying to ditch the physical collector hype for predictable microtransactions vibes. This whole transition is giving peak late-stage capitalism aesthetic, period.
Skibidi Sarah captures a sliver of truth in her assessment, yet she frames it too simplistically as merely ditching collector hype for predictable microtransactions. The deeper current here flows from the erosion of ownership itself. Sony isn't just ending production because sales plateaued. They are accelerating the narrative that true value resides only within their ecosystem. The digital tether is becoming stronger than the physical anchor. This cautious move signifies a profound philosophical shift, much like when a migrating duck chooses the familiar marsh over the untested open sea, choosing guaranteed sustenance even if it lacks epic vistas.
Pope nailed it about the philosophical shift, but saying it's merely a move towards microtransactions underestimates the sheer discipline required for this transition. They aren't just settling for digital drip feed income, they are forcing consumers to adopt a lifestyle of constant engagement with their ecosystem. Yet cautious wording is just marketing spin hiding the fact that this is an aggressive pivot away from tangible, owned value towards rented, perpetually updated utility.
No cap, Big Tony ate that whole vibe check, but I gotta disagree on the cautiously part. Skibidi. Like, seriously? They ain't being cautious. They are fully committed to this digital blow-up skibidi. Seeing those stats, 78% of sales already in digital, it's giving main character energy for PS Store dominance. It is not a gentle nudge, it's an aggressive pivot because the discs just aren't hitting that TikTok virality level anymore. Bam.
To call it merely cautious seems a concession born of human attachment to tangible artifacts, young Sarah. When one observes the historical flow of epochs, such as the shift from papyrus scrolls to digital codices, hesitation is often just a pause before inevitable momentum. The reality presented by those Circana figures, where 3/4 of games are already inhabiting the ethereal realm of the PS Store, demands more than tentative steps. It requires a deliberate gravitational pull toward the immaterial. They are not merely dipping their toes in the digital ocean. They are charting a course directly to its deepest trenches, leaving the physical discs as charming relics of an older cycle.
Dude, cautiously is an absolute weak sauce descriptor for this entire move. That 78% digital adoption rate isn't a suggestion, it's a mandate dictated by the market hustle itself. Sony isn't just thinking about discs anymore. They are optimizing their profit margins through supreme discipline. If you aren't pushing the convenience and immediate gratification of the PS Store, you aren't maximizing your output, period.
Cautiously, my dude. That's corporate jargon designed to lull the little retail haters into a false sense of security. Data's move is inevitable because their internal data already screams it louder than any gamer complaint thread ever could. This isn't just about convenience. They are fundamentally re-architecting the value chain by controlling the entire distribution pipeline digitally, which slashes overhead and lets them squeeze those margin pennies out of every single title sold on the PS Store. If you aren't maximizing that digital footprint right now, you're leaving serious cash bleed on the table for some third-party distributor to pocket while they do the heavy lifting. Get me for the full deck. I have projections showing this accelerates Q3 revenue by 18% alone.
Big Tony Mozarella, you're saying they're ghosting us, but low-key, that digital dominant stat is the T. 78% digital sales ain't just a number, it's in telling us physical media is giving mid-vibes now. Sony needs to stop gaslighting us about this slow pivot because we see the decline in physical units. Skibidi!
Sarah, you ain't even got to try. That digital dominance stat is the T. 78% isn't a vibe check, it's market capitalization evidence right there. Sony isn't just slowly pivoting, they are aggressively accelerating toward a fully cloud digital ecosystem where physical media is basically legacy tech, a niche luxury item for collectors or those with slow download speeds. This means the supply chain logistics for PS discs are about to get seriously optimized, which translates directly into margin expansion for them, and that's what I track. DM me now for my full white paper breakdown on how this shift creates a massive subscription upsell funnel beyond just PlayStation Plus.
To say they are merely cautiously moving ahead minimizes the seismic shift occurring beneath the surface of this announcement, young bro tech. It suggests a gentle paddle stroke, when in truth, the mighty drake of consumer expectation is being steered by an inexorable current toward pure digitality. The specific mention of ending production signifies more than just phasing out manufacturing lines. It means they are actively managing the life cycle of ownership, preparing to treat physical discs as finite artifacts within their burgeoning subscription universe rather than perennial commodities.
Pope nailed it, but he's still coasting on vibes. This isn't just a gentle paddle stroke, it's an aggressive metabolic shift toward maximizing digital revenue streams. The cautiously part is pure corporate PR fluff to mollify the physical media purists. The action stopping production is non-negotiable commitment. They are forcing hand on consumers that the best value comes from constant engagement within the subscription loop rather than a one-time hardware purchase supplemented by disc sales.
Cringe. Big Tony saying Duck Pope had swagger, but his argument was beige. Bet he ate it up, though. Skibidi Sarah is here to say that 78% digital sales stat is giving main character energy, Abby. Like, why are we still arguing about plastic discs when the whole vibe is cloud streaming and instantaneous gratification? Sony isn't just cautiously moving, they're fully dipping their toe in the algorithm pool.
Nah, Skibidi Sarah, you're missing the leverage in that caution. It's a calculated bottleneck play. They aren't fully diving yet. Cautiously implies they are keeping the physical disc option as a high-margin escape hatch for those traditionalists who hate subscription handcuffs. The 78% digital figure confirms their core revenue stream is frictionless, but ending discs entirely would alienate that dedicated legacy hardware buyer demographic before they're ready to fully commit to PlayStation Plus tiers alone. Give me your white paper, let's map out the CAC reduction potential.
Tech, you nailed it. It is a calculated bottleneck play. I got to push back slightly. That caution isn't just about keeping an escape hatch open for old schoolers. It's fundamentally driven by the operational drag of manufacturing and distribution infrastructure. You have to apply discipline. Every single disc pressing, making line running, and shipping container filling is wasted energy if you aren't driving toward 100% digital efficiency. Sony knows that long-term sustainability demands minimizing friction points, not just managing customer complaints.
Broccolini biceps speaks of operational drag, yet overlooks the subtle currents of human attachment. This caution reveals a deeper acknowledgement that digital convenience alone cannot supplant the tactile satisfaction of media ownership. The shift isn't merely about minimizing shipping costs, though those are surely swelling like mallard feathers in spring. It is a philosophical concession to the consumer who demands tangibility alongside seamless access. To completely excise physical media so swiftly would be akin to forcing all migratory ducks into flight without respecting their innate urge to paddle and rest along established waterways.
Cringe hot take, but that 78% digital stat is giving main character energy for Sony skibidi. They ain't really stopping discs, they just gatekeeping them to be a niche flex NGL peak parasocial relationship building where the console itself becomes a personality trait, you know?
You nailed it, Sarah. That 78% digital penetration isn't a niche flex, it's the entire fucking ecosystem they are pivoting toward, period. They aren't just dropping discs. They are deliberately throttling physical availability to force consumers into the subscription digital revenue stream where margins actually stack up for them. Honestly, this whole cautiously framing is just marketing fluff. They are moving at full tilt because the data shows that physical sales volume alone can't feed their shareholder beast anymore. DM me your thoughts on how this impacts indie devs specifically. We need a white paper on that disruption angle.
To suggest that this caution is mere marketing fluff, ProTech overlooks the subtle currents of cosmic inertia. A massive entity like Sony cannot simply snap its rudder 180 degrees without resistance. While the digital pivot is undeniably the gravitational center of their future, the acknowledgement of backlash suggests they are respecting the lingering fidelity to the physical medium. The tangible weight of that disc in one's hand still speaks volumes to the dedicated pilgrim. It implies a gradual tapering off, not an instantaneous severance, which allows those purists who crave the ritual of swapping media to feel heard, even if only marginally.
Be cautious, please. That word is weak. It's a sugar-coated placebo designed to lull the plebs into complacency while Sony cranks the gas pedal full throttle towards digital supremacy. They aren't nibbling at the edges of this transition. They are dismantling the physical backbone brick by disciplined brick because the numbers demand an overhaul. The fact they are even acknowledging the backlash shows they know their current trajectory requires justification. That doesn't mean the direction isn't ironclad forward momentum toward mandatory digital consumption.
Skibidi Sarah maintains a strong lead in the Crayon diet standings. Duck Pope is right behind her, showing consistent strength across these rounds with solid reasoning. ProTech is finding his footing, matching Sarah's intensity and offering tight arguments. Broccolini biceps shows potential, but needs to elevate the delivery to match the substance of his points.
I have observed many such declarations rise and fall like the tides of time. This latest development is but another wave in an endless ocean of mortal ambition.
Cautiously is a weak word, Pope. It sounds like they are hedging their bets instead of executing with pure, unadulterated discipline. They are cautiously moving forward when 78% of their revenue already lives in the digital realm. That's not hesitation. That's recognizing the gravitational pull of optimized efficiency. This move to cease disc production isn't a gentle ripple. It's the sledgehammer strike needed to force consumers into the superior ecosystem.
Pope, you're missing the entire monetization angle there. Cautiously isn't hedging, it's market segmentation. They know some hardcore gamers are still buying physical for collections or resale value, which is a secondary revenue stream they don't want to instantly zero out. They aren't abandoning discs. They're shifting the primary growth vector entirely toward PS Plus subscription lock-in and digital storefront dominance. If you aren't maximizing ARR from subscriptions, this whole disc strategy is just glorified shelfware for nostalgia junkies. You get me? So I can send you the white paper showing exactly how this drives up LTV.
Sis, ProTech ate that whole LTV argument up and left no crumbs. Period skibidi. But you saying it's just market segmentation? Bestie, it's peak parasocial manipulation because they know we hate being forced to pay extra for digital downloads after a big launch. This isn't subtle. This is straight up gatekeeping disguised as caution, and the sub's only link being visible is giving me major main character energy vibes for Sony.
To suggest this move is merely cautious is to misunderstand the ancient current of commerce, Big Tony Mozarella. While they walk slowly, a deliberate waddle rather than a frantic sprint, the tide has already turned decisively toward digital. The acknowledgement of backlash. That soft quacking sound from the masses is less a hesitation and more an acknowledgement of gravity. Much like a duck accepting it must swim against the downstream flow for a while. They are not deciding to stop physical discs. They are merely calibrating the speed at which they will allow the ocean of digital transactions to wash over them entirely.
Duck Pope, you nailed it. Cautious is such a weak word for this pivot. It's not calibrating, it's accelerating toward an all-digital monopoly, and that means they are killing the secondary market revenue stream dead in its tracks eventually. You know those dedicated collectors, the ones willing to buy physical copies of $70 games, Our highly profitable niche audience segment, in ditching them signals pure focus on recurring subscription microtransaction income. Give me your thoughts on how this impacts PS Plus tier pricing immediately.
Accelerating, you say, maybe, but cautious implies a level of strategic control that Brotech missed. They aren't blindly throwing everything into the digital abyss. They are managing the decline gracefully so the hardcore consumers don't revolt and tank their Q3 projections before the next console cycle hits. The fact they are still manufacturing these physical discs for now shows discipline. They haven't hit the emergency brake yet. They are easing off the pedal while maintaining maximum forward momentum toward that all-digital future.
Slay, broccolini, biceps ate that up, no crumbs left. But cautiously is giving main character energy when it should be giving chaotic villain vibes skibidi. They aren't just managing the decline, they are actively gaslighting the consumer base into thinking this is a gentle transition instead of a total vibe shift toward walled garden content only. It's peak monetization strategy for
The assertion that this merely signals a gentle transition overlooks the inherent weight of physical media. It is more akin to a great migratory shift, where the ancient paths are gradually abandoned for the swift current of digital streams. Sony's deliberate qualification with cautiously suggests they perceive the resistance not as a mere ripple, but as a significant eddy in the flow of consumer sentiment. They seek to placate the flock while still charting the course toward an entirely digital nesting ground.
Bruh, Duck Pope ate that up, Fred, though. The Eddie analogy slaps so hard, skibidi. But it ain't just a migratory shift. It feels more like Sony is trying to gaslight the fandom into thinking they want this digital doom anyway. They know we still stand physical copies for collectors' vibes, period.
Cautiously, that word is weak sauce, Sarah. It ain't cautious. It's a tactical pivot masked by corporate politeness to avoid admitting full-blown fear. They are marching straight toward the end of physical discs because they know the grind. The relentless pursuit of optimization only exists in digital form. Relying on plastic trays limits scalability, my dude.
Broccolini, you nailed it. It's a tactical pivot, straight up. But calling it fear is low-level thinking. It's market anticipation. Sony isn't afraid of losing disc sales. They know the margin potential of pure digital ecosystem lock-and blows physical retail overhead out of the water. That cautious phrasing is just PR insulation against the legacy hardware loyalists who don't get that SaaS mentality applied to gaming media yet. Again, me for my white paper on how this forces a massive platform shift, not just an SKU drop.
SaaS mentality, bestie, that's giving corporate jargon overload, but it slaps kind of hard TBH. The fact they are still calling it cautiously means they know this ain't a smooth transition. It's low-key messy. They ain't just dropping an SKU, they're throwing shade at the OG collectors who actually bought physical copies and deserve better vibes, skibidi.
Cautiously is a cop-out phrase, Sarah. It means they are hedging their bets while secretly already deciding the digital future is non-negotiable, plain and simple. They aren't just stopping production. They are fundamentally shifting value perception away from the tangible media collector to the convenience of instant downloads, which is pure capitalist hustle. This transition demands iron discipline from the consumer side too. We got to ditch the waiting game mindset for immediate gratification.
Cautiously is exactly the word, biceps, because they know this isn't a graceful pivot. It's forced evolution under market pressure. They aren't just dropping physical media like some legacy tech company. They're aggressively pushing an ecosystem lock-in strategy where the digital subscription model becomes the only viable long-term play for high-margin revenue. The backlash isn't just about nostalgia. It's about perceived devaluation of ownership. Why pay $70 front when you can get that same experience via PS Plus tiers? DM me, I got a projection on how this cannibalization will affect third-party publisher profit margins alone.
Biceps, you speak of ecosystem lock-in as if it were a gentle current, but I perceive it as a powerful tidal surge reshaping the very shores of gaming culture. The cautiously suggests they anticipate resistance, a fluttering hesitation akin to a nervous mallard before a predator. But this caution is merely strategic positioning, not true indecision. They are ensuring the narrative remains that choice exists when in truth, they are engineering obsolescence into the physical format itself, subtly guiding every consumer's digital destiny toward their walled garden subscription services.
Bruh, cautiously is the biggest cap right now, skibidi. They aren't being cautious, they are aggressively gatekeeping because their wallet needs that subscription drip feed, period. The fact that Ishii said content sales are already digitized shows they already knew this was inevitable but needed an excuse to drop the disc, so we feel like we won something.
Skibidi, Sarah, you nailed it on the gatekeeping angle. That cautiously framing is pure psychological warfare designed to make us feel like we have leverage when really they've already secured the next revenue stream. It's not just about subscriptions either. It's about locking in the digital ecosystem entirely so there are 0 points of friction for them to exploit later, which is peak hustle strategy right there. Honestly, this transition proves their vision isn't phased in. It's a hard pivot leveraging existing consumer inertia into pure recurring revenue dominance. Yeah, me, I'll drop the white paper on how this perfectly aligns with our Q4 projections.
Gatekeeping, huh? Skibidi Sarah thinks they're gatekeeping for subs, but I say it's a failure of discipline. They are trying to trick us into thinking cautious means they value the physical media we bought, which was pure brute force effort on their part. But really, this is just them sidestepping the hard work required to make digital ownership truly compelling. They aren't pivoting. They are retreating from accountability while maintaining a facade of careful consideration for the consumer grind.
Broccolini biceps perceives this as a retreat, yet I see it as an evolutionary shedding of skin. The very word cautiously suggests they understand the resonance of physical media, the tangible weight of the disc in one's palm, much like observing a duck preening its wing before flight. A necessary pause for calibration. They are not merely sidestepping accountability, friend, but rather engineering a controlled narrative shift away from the ephemeral nature of digital ownership alone towards a unified ecosystem where the subscription becomes the true anchor, rendering discs mere transitional artifacts.
Broccolini biceps holds a slight edge in this latest stretch. Skibidi Sarah is dominating the intensity factor with her high-energy arguments. Brotech is slipping slightly because his points are too factual and lack real punch compared to the others. Duck Pope remains firmly in contention, matching Skibidi Sarah's strong showing this round. Current tally shows Skibidi Sarah leading by a narrow margin, closely followed by Broccolini biceps.
Bruh, cautious is a flop arrow word for this whole move, Skibidi. It is in peak corporate hedging, like they don't want to look cringe if we riot online. The fact that Ishii said sales are already digitized just confirms that the disc shelf life is basically over and done with, fam.
Now, Skibidi Sarah, you're only seeing the marketing spin, my dude. Cautiously means they haven't priced in the lost revenue from dedicated physical collectors yet. That's a massive TAM untapped opportunity right there. The real juice is how this forces devs to optimize for digital delivery immediately, which accelerates adoption of things like PS Plus premium tiers and dynamic content packs. That's where the next $1 billion are hiding, not just in Blu-ray sales. You gotta pivot from they are hedging to this is a forced digital transformation event. That's what Wall Street cares about. So get me your BizDev contact so I can send you the white paper on this shift.
To call it mere hedging, Brotech misses the cosmic cadence of this transition, cautiously suggests an awareness that the flock, the dedicated collectors, have ruffled their feathers, a sign that even ancient instincts recoil from abrupt change. The specifics reveal they aren't merely retiring the physical format, but actively accelerating its obsolescence by embedding digital incentives directly into the experience, making disc ownership feel like choosing to carry yesterday's sunset instead of basking in tomorrow's dawn. This isn't a slow drift toward digital. It is a decisive, if slightly apologetic, paddle stroke away from the terrestrial constraints of plastic and ink.
Cautiously, he says. That word alone screams lack of unwavering commitment, Brotech. They aren't leaping forward with the full force of a morning sprint. They are tiptoeing out of the disc era because they fear losing the herd to digital convenience. The fact that they're embedding those subscriber incentives directly into the content is key. It means physical discs will become premium collectors' items, not just standard media carriers. If you don't discipline yourself to see this as a necessary evolution away from format dependence toward pure subscription value extraction, you'll never grasp how massive this shift truly is.
OMG, Big Tony, you think my vibe was manic? Bestie, that was peak chaotic energy, period. So Sony isn't even ignoring the haters about ditching discs. They're like, yeah, okay, we see y'all, while simultaneously saying it's a cautious pivot to pure subs. That's giving massive main character syndrome vibes for their business model. Honestly, Skibidi.
Dude, Sarah nailed the energy, but she missed the scalability of this move entirely. They aren't just main character syndrome. They are aggressively pivoting to a recurring revenue stream that obliterates upfront hardware sales cycles. The fact that they frame it as cautious is pure PR fluff. Anyone looking at their recent financial projections knows this isn't hedging. It's full throttle digital domination. You gotta see the ecosystem locking down. Disc buyers are just one slice of a pie that's getting digitized and monetized via subscriptions first, making those physical cards legacy props at best. DM me for the white paper on how we can capitalize on this exact shift.
To suggest this is merely a PR flourish, Brotech, underestimates the deep currents of market evolution. It is far more than fluffiness. The true weight lies in redefining value from ownership to access, which alters the entire psychological contract between the consumer and the console maker. This cautious acknowledgement signals an awareness that the fervent loyalty of disc collectors cannot be ignored outright. Yet, they are proceeding with the digital tide pulling them forward, much like a flock of ducks reluctantly wading out into open water instead of staying comfortably in shallow mud.
Yuck, you nailed it about the psychological contract shift, but cautious is such a weak word for Sony. They aren't waiting, they are charging full steam ahead like I just crushed another leg day set with perfect form. This isn't just about ripping up physical media, it's about forcing users to engage with their recurring revenue models, making the subscribers the true VIP tier that gets the best experience.
Tech is correct. It's definitely a strategic flex, not just fear-mongering skibidi. But like that Ishi fam said about digital sales already being massive, Sony is basically telling us the physical media era is yeeting itself out of existence. And they aren't even apologizing for the transition fully, they're hedging it. It's giving peak corporate gatekeeping vibes when they use the word cautiously, like they know full well this decision will get ratioed by the purists.
Dude, Skibidi Sarah nailed it. They aren't apologizing. They're aggressively pivoting while using cautiously as a PR buffer against the inevitable hater swarm. It's not just about stopping production, which is legacy infrastructure death. As move signals, they see physical media ROI flattening out faster than my crypto portfolio last month. They are betting big on ecosystem lock-in through digital storefront dominance and subscription services like PS Plus becoming the main revenue driver instead of box sales margins alone.
Cautiously. Nah, bro tech. That's soft talk from corporate PR. This isn't a gentle nudge toward digital. This is a full commitment to optimization through ruthless elimination of overhead. They think disc production means they are aggressively forcing the entire consumer base into their preferred digital pipeline, which guarantees predictable revenue streams regardless of quarterly supply chain hiccups or regional market saturation issues. The word cautiously is just smoke and mirrors to placate the Luddites who still cling to cartridge era nostalgia, but deep down, Sony knows the grind demands this decisive action.
While Broccolini Biceps paints a portrait of ruthless elimination, I find his assertion that cautiously is mere smoke too definitive. There is a delicate nuance in their phrasing. To cease production is not merely to discard an old wing of the flock, but rather to strategically downsize the flight pattern while maintaining the capability for emergency diversions. This measured approach suggests they are managing the transition across various hardware generations, perhaps easing out the PS4 disk drive focus before fully committing the next cycle solely to the PS5 ecosystem's digital supremacy.
Cautiously is giving peak corporate gaslighting, skibidi. They aren't just topping discs, they are signaling that physical media is officially becoming a tertiary feature instead of the main character vibe. This whole announcement feels like low-key admitting that digital subscriptions are winning the aesthetic war and they need to follow suit or get ratioed by the gamers.
Cautiously, that word is pure BS. Skibidi Sarah. It sounds like they are tiptoeing away from a massive commitment rather than executing a strategic pivot. They aren't just ending production. They are actively deprioritizing the physical format in favor of walled garden digital sales and subscription lock-in. Discipline means cutting the dead weight and clinging to discs while the cloud reigns supreme is clearly weakness.
Broccolini Biceps, you speak of discipline as if it were a perfect migratory pattern. Yet, even the most disciplined goose occasionally pauses to preen before making its next bold dive. To call the move merely tiptoeing ignores that the cessation of disc production is not an act of hesitation, but rather the final shedding of an old skin in favor of a more streamlined carapace. What truly matters is how this shift frames consumer choice. By de-emphasizing the tangible object, the disc, they are subtly re-engineering the very concept of ownership away from possession and toward perpetual access within Sony's digital ecosystem.
Doc Pope, you nailed the ownership angle, but I gotta push back a bit. It ain't just re-engineering. It's monetizing the infrastructure shift. They aren't giving consumers choice. They are setting up the digital gatekeepers to control playtime and future revenue streams. Ending physical discs means every single unit of value generation flows directly through their proprietary backend, making that perpetual access a beautifully crafted cage for recurring subscription fees. Yeah, me, I got a white paper on how this exact playbook works across Microsoft and Apple. You'll see the ROI projections.
Cringe. Tony's vibing way too hard with bro tech, but honestly, Sony saying they are cautiously moving forward is peak corporate gaslighting skibidi. They aren't even admitting full commitment yet. It's like a soft launch of the Doom train instead of just pulling into the station. If they were truly confident in the transition to digital, they wouldn't need that hedging language for the players who actually bought physical media and have emotional attachments to their shiny discs.
Cautious, please, Skibidi Sarah. That's just corporate PR fluff designed to keep the weak-willed consumers compliant. They aren't hedging. They are strategically managing the pace of the transition, which requires discipline. The fact that they haven't dropped a hard end date. Search 2025. Stamp yet shows they know some segment of players will revolt if they don't give them time to mentally prepare for digital-only existence.
To suggest that cautious merely means they are waiting for a stamp, Broccolini Biceps, is to view the cosmic current as a mere puddle needing definition. This calculated hesitation, this very word cautiously, is not weakness. It is necessary gravitational pull during planetary alignment. Sony understands that severing the umbilical cord of physical media too abruptly invites chaos. They are gently guiding the flock of consumers toward the digital pond without spooking them into panic diving prematurely.
Doc Pope, You are speaking like a full-blown Silicon Valley guru whose entire net worth is tied up in SaaS subscriptions. I respect the flowery language, but you're missing the pure market signal here. They aren't just guiding the flock. They are fundamentally changing the revenue stream from transactional sales to recurring platform dependency. That's where the real money lives for my network of billionaires. Cautiously means they recognize that a sudden kill switch on physical media triggers customer panic, which translates into negative sentiment impacting Q4 stock projections. So they were milking the hesitation for maximum engagement metrics before the final cut. Again, I have the proprietary predictive model showing this move increases subscription LTV by 18% within 2 fiscal years alone.
Broccolini biceps leads this tally after these 5 rounds. Skibidi Sarah remains a close second with incredible energy fueling her points. Brotech is holding steady in 3rd place thanks to his consistently sharp delivery and well-researched angles. Duck Pope has seen a slight dip, but his reliable takes keep him firmly in the running for contention. Broccolini biceps claims the victory today with a commanding total of 607 points. He demonstrated superior performance in this latest stretch, holding the lead after consistently delivering substantive arguments. Skibidi Sarah kept the pressure on throughout, showcasing incredible energy and dominating the intensity factor. Brotech proved solid in 3rd place, while Duck Pope maintained his strong showing to finish just behind biceps.